Good morning, everyone. I call the meeting to order, and I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. My name is Cynthia Stevens, and I'll be chairing the panel today. To my far left is Mr. Richard Whitbread, and to my immediate left is Mr. Jeff Pike. Our assessor today is Matthew Baracus, and our secretary is Kara Balshaw. We will be hearing applications for the revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application. We will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that applicants or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will then repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed and recorded and will be part of the public record. And please turn your cell phones to silent, and I think I forgot to do that. So.
Yeah.
Please state your name.
Matt Rogers.
Do you affirm the evidence you present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Swear. Please state your name.
Ryan Oliveros.
Do you swear the evidence you present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
The first city item on the docket this morning is 595 Mountain Avenue, and we are dealing with amount of assessed value. So Mr. Baracus, when you're ready, please.
File number 19-2286, roll number 1404359, 7500 595 Mountain Avenue. Owner is WHRC. There is predominantly apartment in regards to the valuation. There is a small commercial component to the assessment as well. In total, the assessed value is 5.34 million. Last go around, it was 5,407,000. So pretty much exactly where we were last time. 11 stories, 1986. We don't have an effective year built on it. It's 79 suites, 47 outdoor parking spots, construction class B, reinforced concrete frame. On page 3, you'll see, on page 2, you'll see their request for income information. Oh, there's also a scale here that's post-reference. I didn't cross it out. I'd ask you to disregard that. Page 3 shows our request for income information, or page 3 is our income value summary. 74 one-bedrooms, 5 two-bedrooms for the 79 suites in total for the purpose of saving time. For the, in regards to the net operating income of the apartment portion, we're exactly the same. Just glancing ahead at the applicant's brief. So not going to go into that one, that facet in detail because we agree. So we use a 5.6% cap rate on it for the CC20. Our cap rate evidence can be found on page 6 and 6A. These charts are familiar, I'm sure, as this is the last day of the Board of Revision season. So we have sales to substantiate the model-derived values on page 6A, third table from the top, ranging from 4.03 up to 5, just to substantiate the mall drive cap rates, not meant to be comparable specific to the property whatsoever. So where we differ is the commercial component. It is, our workup can be found on page 5 in regards to that. So we've got our breakdown. We got 5,660 square feet of leasable area at $8.68 per square foot to come up with our potential rent, using our 2% non-recoverable expenses as we have this season. And our shortfall, we get a net operating income of $43,050 with our 9.5% cap rate as per age, area, and size. We get our capitalized value, $4,053,000 rounded. Below that, we have some examples of similarly sized leased areas. Net rents ranging from 9.5 up to 11. McGregor, Main Street, it's in the general area of the subject property, so our rent is supported. And then page 6B and 6B through 6E is just some literature in regards to us going to the 2% non-recoverable expenses. I'm sure you've heard it before. So on 6D, there's just a table of some properties that we reviewed using the income and expenses they submit to the city, and it's pretty clear that 2% is reflective of what is actually going on out there in terms of non-recoverable expenses. So we have 10A is just what I was able to pull off the computer in regards to the property. So being that it is WHRC, it is not market rents. So CMHC, or rather we have it lower in our models to reflect that. It's below CMHC rents, and the applicant isn't disputing it. You'll see that it's 28% of gross income. And the last page, page 11, is just a picture of the outside. I wasn't able to inspect this property or any property on the docket today for that matter. So we're approximately we're 31,000 higher than we were last time. That's my evidence. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Oliveros, questions?
I do. So page 1 of your brief, the number of buildings, you have it as 2.
Oh.
I believe that there's only 1 building. Do you
Yeah.
agree?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
I'll change that in the system.
Outdoor parking as well, have a label as 47. Would have to refer to my brief for this, just for an overview photo of the subject property. There doesn't appear to be 47 parking stalls. I also did an external inspection of this. I'm just wondering where that 47 came from.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. I don't see room for 47 stalls there. So that's something that in our system needs to be amended to.
Perfect. And I do have rebuttal evidence to submit with regards to the commercial rents as well as the apartment cap rates, which I'm sure for the apartment cap rates.
Okay, let's hand them out and then let's finish the questioning and then we'll do the rebuttal, if that's okay.
Okay, for sure.
So do you have any other questions for Mr. Barocas at this point?
I do, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So going to page 3 of your brief here. The suite mix for this property, would you say it's less than ideal?
No.
Looking at the income valuation that you have here, the rents that you've generated, the rents that the model has generated, sorry, it's all model, it is all model generated, correct?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. And just going to the cap rates now, I'm sure we've heard this quite a few times already. The first three cap rate comparables that you have, you're aware that they were purchased with the intention to renovate? I won't go into this too much, but.
So, yeah, so the gist of it is, you've got some orders here saying that the renovations essentially have to be significant in order to disqualify the income leading up to the sale as a calculation of cap rates. So if you go to page 11, that's Roach. So on the sale price of, I think it's 3.61, 3.81.
Page 11 of,
The appellant's rebuttal. So they spent 3,610,000. They said they intended to do suite upgrades for 100,000 on the property, which works out to roughly 2.7% the overall sale price, so I wouldn't consider that significant.
Looking at page 9 of my brief though here, it says in the underlined portion, for it's a municipal board decision, the board does not accept that any intention to renovate should disqualify a property sale. Oh, there's.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is that just because they said they intended to renovate, that a property sale should be disqualified. And then it says right afterwards, a renovation must be of significant financial investment. This is on page 9 of the main underlined section. The last sentence says a renovation must be of significant financial investment on the part of the property owner, one that will cause future rents to substantially increase and should usually involve modification of building envelope and realignment of structural walls. They indicated suite upgrades to the tune of 2.7% of what they actually paid for the property, and they didn't indicate that they were modifying the envelope or realigning the structural walls. So, in my opinion, it does not fall into the category where it should be excluded.
That's fair. Alright. So, the commercial rents here, so I'm just trying to track down the page. So no further questions, I would like to move on to my rebuttal.
I'm gonna let the panel ask questions and then
Okay.
you can present your rebuttal. And Mr. Whitford, did you have any questions?
You indicated it's model driven,
Yes.
and I'll ask this once for all cases. Have you made any adjustments to the model numbers in any of the cases today?
I'd have to check them as it goes.
Well,
I
that's
can't,
every
I
time
can't,
then.
I will let you know if I did, so you don't
Okay.
have to ask me.
Yeah, let's do
Okay.
that. Okay, thank you very much. No other questions.
Mr. Pike?
No other questions, please.
What kind of commercial entity is this in there, do you?
So, what we had was on record with the Canadian German Society, but looking at the applicant's brief, I think there's a bowling alley in the basement, is there not?
That's correct,
Yeah,
yes.
so
Okay.
we need to go out there and take a look at what's going on.
Okay, so what you have in your records is not what appears, what's going on there then?
Not at all.
Okay, all right, I can clarify that with the applicant. Okay, That's all I had, thank you, so now you can present your rebuttal evidence, please.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Stevens. All right, so my rebuttal refers to the rents that are applied for the commercial section, so the basement portion of the subject property. So it is a bowling lane. So if you go to page 1 of my brief, 408 McGregor, it's a 2-story retail building on the southwest corner of McGregor Street and St. John's Avenue. You'll see in my notes there that I suspect that the lease is likely a non-arm's length lease. I've included the 2017 assessment notice to show you that. So we can see from the photo here, it's the Winnipeg Métis Association. So this photo here was from Street View July of 2016. So this falls right in line with the time frame of the lease that the model has stated here. So from this, again, we can see that's an non-arm's length lease. It appears to be all office space in comparison to the subject property, which is a bowling alley. The land to building ratio, I believe it's quite similar to the subject. And another point I wanted to make about this, again, there's no basement. For basement leases, we can reasonably suspect the lease rates to be lower or significantly lower for basement rents. Okay, so
Is your actual rent for this property on here, and?
no, I was the assessor. We actually don't have 408 McGregor here on our records. So I'm just going with what the lease rate was for what the assessor has. I'm going with the lease rate that the assessor has on his brief.
Oh, okay, all right. So we need to flip to
No
there.
contention to the lease rate itself. I just want.
So, okay, you're just comparing the properties that he actually has on his list. Okay, I got it now.
Correct. Yes. Yes.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I can be more clear on that. All right, so going to page 2, again, just comparing the leases in comparison to, just comparing the characteristics of the property itself. So 1560 Main Street, it's a retail strip mall in the southwest corner of Main Street and McAdam Avenue. It's actually in the Jefferson Avenue, it's in the Jefferson neighborhood of Winnipeg. We have Inkster Faraday here for 595 Mountain. The land to building ratio is almost double what the land to building ratio for 1560 Main Street is double than what the subject property is. And on page 2A, you can see that I've confirmed that there is no basement space in there as well. Going to page 3 of my rebuttal evidence, 1033 and 1031 McGregor. The address that the roll falls under is 1021 McGregor Street. It's a retail strip mall located on the southeast corner of Leal Avenue and McGregor Street, with a land to building ratio of approximately triple of what the subject property is. And again, I provided the assessment details for this on page 3B. We can see that there is no basement space for this property as well. My point would be that we're looking at basement space for the subject property. What the model has supplied here are all main floor rents. Office spaces, retail spaces, not comparable to the subject property commercial area. And that concludes my rebuttal evidence.
Now, you also handed out some rebuttal on cap rates. Are you wanting to present that, or?
I believe that just came through questioning already.
Okay, so you're good, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so Mr. Brockes, do you have any questions regarding the rebuttal?
Yeah. So these are our comparables, model comparables. The net rents are higher than what we've assigned on the subject property, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, and 2 of the 4 leases are older, being signed in 2011 and 2012. looking at an April 1st, 2018 reference date, wouldn't, you know, generally those numbers be higher if signed on the reference date?
Generally, yes, but, I mean, we're looking at main floor rents in comparison to basement rents. The adjustments to that, even if we were to bring these to the reference period, I can see I don't agree with the $8.68. I believe that would require further downward adjustment. The income statement for the subject property does show that the lease in place for the subject is much lower.
Okay. I'll save the rest of the questions for your presentation. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Pesh, do you have any questions on the rebuttal?
I do, you mentioned in your rebuttal that you've done an exterior inspection. Did I hear that correct?
I did an exterior inspection of the subject property, not of the subject.
Okay, so not of any of the, none of the properties that you put forward here?
None of the properties I reported here, except for the last two comps. I do go to the. I've been to the last two comps quite a few times. I actually go to the restaurant quite a bit.
Okay,
So,
right.
yeah.
So you have some familiarity with the property?
Some
the last one?
familiarity, yeah.
Okay. I've got other questions, I'll save that, the applicant's presentation.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Whitbread, do you have any questions?
Nothing, thanks.
And I have no questions on that as well, but just before we move on to your presentation, I just had one question that I forgot to ask you, Mr. Brockes. Is this property within the area that would get a bit of a bump on the cap rate? Is McGregor?
Yes.
It is, okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, and Mr. Oliveris, you may proceed.
Okay, so the subject property at 595 Mountain Avenue, roll number 14-0435-97500. Page 1 of my brief is just a summary of my analysis today. You can see a photo of the subject on page 1. Going on to page 2, so the subject property at 595 Mountain Avenue between McGregor Street, it is between McGregor Street and Mackenzie Street in the Inkster Faraday area of Winnipeg. It consists of an 11-story structure built in 1986, presently being used as a mixed-use development. We have residential on the upper floor and on the upper floors, and we have a commercial space in the basement. The total gross floor area is 74,515 square feet. It has a total of 79 units, including 74 one-bedroom suites and 5 two-bedroom suites. And there's a reported number of 16 parking stalls on the site. Subject site, it's irregular in shape. And according to the city's assessment department records, we have an assessed land area of 12,457 square feet, and it is zoned RMFL. On page 3 of my brief, I've provided a Google map photo just to show some of the amenities around that area. Page 4 to 5 of my brief, I'm sure we've heard this quite a few times, so I'll keep it brief. For apartments, we should be looking at them, or the municipal board has ruled that we should be looking at apartments on a site-specific basis, so looking at the actual incomes in place. So, going to page 7 of my brief, as you can see on our income valuation here, we're not disputing the model's net operating income today. We have applied, though, a 5.75% base cap rate, and we've applied a 1% premium to account for the location and the fact that it's a WHRC property, or Winnipeg Rehabilitation Corporation property. So that brings us to a value of $4,136,000 for the residential portion of the subject. Now, going on to page 8 of my brief, we have our commercial valuation. So for this property, I want to say too that I can respect that finding leases comparable to the subject is difficult. We actually were not able to find any comparable leases for the subject, for the subject's commercial portion, which is why we applied the lease rate that is already in place, which is $1,000 a month, which works out to about $2.12 a square foot. We've applied the vacancy allowance that the assessment department has here, which is 6%. Also we have applied here the non-recoverable expense allowance and also some rooftop income that the income statement has stated. I don't believe that is on the, I don't believe that the model did recognize that rooftop income there. For the cap rate, we don't dispute the cap rate at the assessment department's 9.5%. So for the non-recovered expenses though, I realized that I did not submit that evidence today.
I think we've all heard it, yeah.
Yeah, so if we want to hear just a quick summary of it, I'm happy to do that, but if we wanted to.
I'm good, and I think the rest of it, we're good. We know your position, yes.
Okay, so with that being said, we come up to a income valuation of $219,000 for the commercial portion. So in total, page 9 of my brief, we are asking this board to reduce the 2020 realty assessment to $4,136,000 for the residential portion and $219,000 for, or sorry, $4,136,000 for the residential portion and $219,000 for the commercial portion, which brings us to a total assessed value of $4,355,000.
Okay, Mr. Gross. Sorry, can you, is 4 million your total? That's on the front of your sheet, right?
It's on the front of my, yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Barofsky, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I'll start with the cap. I won't go over it much, but here's some rebuttal you've seen before. Some mailers, sales mailers of 2 of the properties in the Altus cap rate study indicating they were actually purchased for much lower cap rates. There should be enough there for all properties.
Okay, great. Okay, so again, I think I want to go through all the questions and then we'll do your rebuttal.
Okay.
So if you want to ask your questions, then we'll come back to this, thanks. Just easier to keep track of what's going on.
Okay. So for your cap rate study, on page 3, the repair and maintenance, it's not indicated on this page, but I did my own notes, just for clarity. The repair and maintenance per unit as indicated on the pro formas for the properties listed on page 3 on a per unit basis range from $332 to $1,072, the highest being 333 Ward. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. In your opinion, this range of R&M per unit, is this normal and sustainable on a year-over-year basis?
The lower range, 332, from my experience looking at these apartments, I agree that 332 and we do have a range here. Those probably would likely not be sustainable, but we do it on a site-specific basis, and that's what it was for those periods. So.
Okay. So would an investor take that into consideration in formulating their sale price, in which that they would assume a higher R&M, which would in turn calculate a lower cap rate? So basically, instead of, for instance, on 512 Balmoral on page 9, where they assumed $432, it was stabilized at $432 per unit, which in my opinion is not sustainable, and isn't what we see on the applicant side. If they assumed a higher R&M per unit, being that's probably a long-term investment, with a static sale price, the cap rate would be lower?
I would agree with that.
That's my main point. So I'll just urge the board to review those, each of those pro formas and see how those numbers are stabilized. Okay, so you applied a premium on this property of 1%. Is there anywhere in this cap rate study that statistically justifies a 1% boost to the cap rate?
There isn't, but looking at what we applied here, the 575 for a 1980s build, so I think we can reasonably assume, just looking at our cap rates on page 3, we got 100 Southview, 718 Beach. What's on that side? 210 St. Mary's, also 718, 100 Southview. Those are our baseline cap rates. 595 Mountain Avenue, Mesa Verde, I view that as an inferior location, on top of it being a WHRC property. I believe that an upward adjustment to the cap rate would be reasonable.
Okay, so you think 1% is reasonable? All right. Let's see. For the, you've heard a lot about cap rate this year, so I'm not gonna go into it further. For your commercial side on page 8, I believe, you've got $2.12 net rent per square foot. Does that seem low to you? And would that be market?
For a basement rent, it does seem low. And I should have mentioned too that this was actually a gross lease. It is stated on the rent roll for this property, but we are treating it as net.
Oh, so it's a gross lease,
Yeah,
so
it's a gross
its
lease.
net market rent would be even lower?
Yeah. And net market rent would likely be, would be lower, yes, but I think that just speaks to the location, what this property can get for that basement space. And, yeah,
Run by WHRC, that's a not-for-profit, right?
that's correct, yes.
Okay. So, I think I'll just leave that there. And just for clarification's sake, the R&M per unit, say we use 95,000 as maybe like a median divided by 79, it would be around $1,200, $1,300 if we averaged the 3 years. It looks like 1202.
So are we looking at the residential?
I'm just looking at the residential, yeah.
Yeah, I'll trust that the numbers were punched in correctly.
Those are my questions, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Mr. French, you have any questions?
I do. So this is a bowling alley in the basement that is accessible to the residents only or to the public as well?
It's accessible to the public,
It is.
yes.
So
Yeah.
there's a separate entrance, or do you have to walk into this apartment complex?
There's a separate entrance. I did read an article about it. The elevator access from the bowling alley to the upper floors was cut off just to avoid the bowlers going into the residential suite. So yes, there is a separate entrance.
And
What's that?
any sense of the ceiling heights in the basement?
No.
I couldn't find it either.
Yeah,
I
okay,
tried.
I'm just trying to understand what this commercial space looks like.
Mhm.
Are there windows in the basement?
Don't believe so, no. But that's an assumption, yeah. I would take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, okay, just also started to think about fire egress, but anyway. On your page 8, other income, rooftop income, I may have zoned out, if you touched on that, I apologize, but could you, what is that?
That would be a radio cell tower. So from what I've learned regarding those radio cell towers, is that usually these companies who establish them, or who build these radio cell towers on top of these buildings, would typically go to, we typically go on properties that are struggling.
Yes.
That's just one of the reasons, though. I'm not saying that's all the reasons, but that's just one of the reasons why there would be a radio cell tower there.
Okay.
So they're getting that extra income there. For the basement area, I believe the best information we have for that is on page 21 of my brief. We got a wall height of about 10 feet
Okay,
for the basement.
Okay.
Yeah.
all right. And then, you're in agreement that the effective age is 1986?
Yeah, I would agree with that effective age.
Okay. And typical, I hate to even raise cap rates because we've talked about it quite a bit, but the typical Altus cap rate for 1986, 5.75.
5.75
And then you've
is-
discussed the premium, given the location and.
Yes,
Yeah.
location, the fact that it's a WHRC property, so.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. I have no other questions, thanks.
Mr. Whitbread?
I know income is not an issue, and it's a non-profit organization,
Yes.
but if I look at the financial statement, there's no subsidy. With Manitoba Housing, we see a subsidy, a rent subsidy. We have an affordable rent here, and then this property actually shows a loss at the bottom.
Right.
Does that get recouped from some level of government at the end of the day, so it ends up being a nonprofit? Or does it just operate at a loss? You see the second page of the financials? It shows a loss on the,
Sorry, I thought we were referring to page 7, so page,
I'll find it as well. Page 13. Net surplus and loss at the very bottom.
right.
But it doesn't show at the top in the revenue section. It doesn't show any subsidy, it just shows an ability to pay. Is that standard for Winnipeg Housing?
Typically, yes, that's a good question though, with whether they recoup those, costs from the government. I'm actually not, I don't know too much about that point.
Yeah, it's not all that relative, I was just looking at this section, but not showing the subsidies in this section is different than a Manitoba Housing brief, where they show the subsidy.
Right, yeah, this property itself, they don't have, I believe it's in the assessor's brief. There's no subsidies on this property, so it looks like just the rents are lower for it. Yeah.
And that's, I guess that's ultimately where it would go, is to the rent per suite. Because when I look at the rents on the roll, they're somewhat lower than what the city has indicated at 683.
Yeah.
I'm looking at 465, 533, based on ability to pay.
Exactly.
So,
And I think that's why we went with the assessors, just because if we were to apply this, we just, as you can see with the NOIs here, on line 33, we would just come to a value that's just too low for the subject.
yeah, okay, just so I understand that, thanks. Because I think we have one other Winnipeg Housing property as well. It's the same deal probably. Okay, no other questions?
And I think my questions have all been answered. So Mr. Brockers, if you want to go through your rebuttal information, please?
Yeah, turn to page 3 of Altus's cap rate study, and then have my rebuttal next to it. So this is a package of sales mailers, there's 2 of them, the first one being 210 St. Mary's. You'll see that Altus has assigned a 6.26 cap rate to it, purchaser.
So this is their main rebuttal that was part of the original package, or
No, this is their.
main cap rate study, not the
cap rate
rebuttal,
study.
yeah. Yeah, I think we were all looking at the
So
rebuttal.
page 3, it gives the summary of their properties they used.
Yes, okay.
in the cap rate study. So they use 6 1/4 on this one through their calculations with $332 per unit repair and maintenance amount. On page 5 of my, page 5 of my rebuttal shows that they actually indicated a capitalization rate of 5.5%. I know there was also a repair and maintenance study that was submitted to the city as well in regards to what they've calculated typical repair and maintenance to be. So I believe, so if we go low rise 52, which would fall into the 46 to 59. On page 4 of their repair and maintenance study, they've stabilized 6 properties on a per suite basis at $859 per suite, 932, 1,375, 1703, 1286, 1106. So
Where are you reading from now, Matt?
page 14 of the repair and maintenance study submitted.
14, sorry, I thought you said page 4, so
Sorry.
I was, no, it's
Yeah,
not your fault.
There's a few documents going around now.
Yes, it is.
I thought you said page 4, I heard only the 4 part, okay, there we go, not on the
So-
right page.
So when they do their repair and maintenance study for properties under appeal, then you look at the age groups, you'll notice that what they've stabilized is a lot higher than where their cap rate properties have been stabilized at, what departments they would fall into and comparing to their repair and maintenance study. So it ranges from 859 to 1703, and this one's at $332 per unit. And they've stabilized at 6.5. If you put in, just pick one of those lower R&M per suite and applied that to the subject property, the cap rate would go down closer to 5.5, what they actually indicated. And that's basically the crux of our argument this season. So if you go to, 5.5 for 210 St. Mary's, that's what the purchaser said. The last page, flip to the back of mine, page 7. This is Beach. Altus is stabilized at 5.42. The purchaser, the back page of my rebuttal highlighted, says it was purchased for the property's net operating income, and they said 4.5. So it's a big difference. That one, if you look at it on a per unit basis, that one was stabilized at $500 per unit. You won't see that coming across the table on the appellant side. That's my rebuttal.
Thank you. Mr. Oliveris, do you have any questions?
I guess just with these cap rates that the purchasers have stated here, they've provided no background information on them, I guess, right?
I don't have a workup.
Okay. Yeah, that's all my questions. Thank you, Mr. Barocas.
Mr. Whitford, any questions?
No, I'm okay, thanks.
Okay, Mr. Pike?
I have nothing.
I have none either. So, I think we are complete. We went back and forth so many times there, I'm just trying to make sure that we got everything in, so, any need for summation on this one?
I'm good, thanks.
Yeah, I'm okay.
You're good? Okay, thank you very much. next item on the docket is 330 Mackenzie Street. And we are dealing with amount of assessed value. Mr. Zarakas, when you are ready.
Okay. Okay. File number 19-3459, roll number 14040140500, 330 Mackenzie Street, assessed value, $3,411,000. For the 2020 roll year with April 1st, 2018 reference date 1968 with no effective age applied to it. It's a two-story building with 50 suites and 39 outdoor parking spots. Construction class C masonry bearing walls. They made a rec to this property based on the financials that have been submitted to us. If you go to page 3, you'll see that I used the 2016 income and expenses, the 2017 income and expenses. There's a significantly higher level of renovation, repair and maintenance that's been applied to this, done to this property in 2017. The applicant's brief really displays it in a lot clearer than mine. On a year-over-year basis, they'd spent $157,937 in 2017. In the previous 3 years, they spent $40,000, $40,000, $61,000. Also, for whatever reason, the potential rent dropped from 2016 to 2017, from $400,000 to $389,000. So I feel the level of renovation may have had a hand in that. Will they be doing work inside suites, not allowing them to rent it out? So I used the 2016 as a more accurate reflection of how the property on a for-profit basis would actually behave. 2017, they had an 83% expense ratio. 2016, they had a 55% expense ratio, which is much more normal. So, that being said, the model is still a bit too high. So using our 6% cap rate, and this falls into the area that does get the premium as well, so that's why we're looking at a 6 for a 1968. I took the 2016 numbers as a more true to market reflection. 56.33% expense ratio with a 6% cap calculates to $2,985,000 rounded. The property on Mackenzie Street, if you go to page 4, you'll see the modeled workup, but you can disregard that. Top just shows that out of the 50 suites, there's 20 one-bedroom, 27 two-bedroom, and 3 three-bedroom suites involved there. So it's all modeled. I haven't made any, there hasn't been any overrides applied to it. And then if you go to page 8, there's a picture for what I found on the ad from the computer, managed by Sussex Realty. So 8 onwards shows the mailers. The applicant's brief does display the financials clear, so if you want to go through those on a more line item basis, probably best to just look at theirs. So I made my rec based on a normal year of operation and the 6% cap. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Oliveris, are you in agreement with this recommendation?
I'm not, but we do appreciate the recommendation.
Okay. Okay, so any questions then?
Yes. Just to clarify, on page 3, the recommendation, so now this is all site specific, correct?
Well, page 3, yeah.
Page 3, okay. Going to page 6A of your brief, just with regards to the cap rate, failed to ask this in the for the last property. There's no background information
It's all
on how
down.
the cap rates were derived?
No.
No, okay. All right, no further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Woodruff?
You're calling it a two-story. I'm sorry, I had to go to the
Mhm.
applicant's photo. I couldn't find one in your brief, unless I missed it somehow. But it definitely appears that there are 3 levels of rental.
It looks like the basement goes, there's suites in the basement, and it looks like it goes down a bit. Maybe not a full basement depth.
So you don't call that 3 stories then, eh? You just call it 2 stories?
We have it as 2 in our model. We do have the square footage and the suite count correct, so it wouldn't affect what category of cap or rent will be generated on the property.
Okay. Nothing at this point,
Okay,
so.
thank you. Mr. Pike?
Still no questions,
No,
thanks.
I have no questions either. Mr. Oliveris, you can proceed, please.
So the subject property, 330 Mackenzie Street, roll number 14-04-040140500, file number 19-3459. Page 1 of my brief is just a summary again of my analysis today. Just going forward, my brief does follow the same logic.
Okay, yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
keep that in mind.
Page 2, so the subject property is located on the west side of Mackenzie Street, between Boyd Avenue and Redwood Avenue. The improvement's a 2.5-story structure, built in 1968, and it's presently being used as a multiple-family residential building. The site size, according to the assessment department records, is 40,715 square feet and zone RMFL. We have, on our records, 49 suites. The city has 50, not too much of a difference there. They include 21 bedroom suites, 25 2-bedroom suites, and 4 3-bedroom suites. Page 3, again, there's a map of the amenities around that area. So going to page 7A. We have applied the 2017 rents here. So again, so with Sussex, they typically include vacancy in their stated rents. We've also deducted the rents for discounts.
Sorry, my pen just died on me, son.
That's
Okay, no, I'm good now. Keep going.
And we do recognize that there is laundry and parking income, as well as some miscellaneous income there, that we took the average of 2015 to 2017. On page 7A, or sorry, oh, I said that again. So for the expenses, unless otherwise stated, we've used the 2017 figure. Line 27, we can see in the remarks section that we have stabilized the repair and maintenance to $56,951. And the details of how I came about those numbers are included in page 7B of my brief today. So with that, we come up to total expense of $231 and $231,203, which brings our NOI to $172,000 approximately. For this property, we've applied a 6% base cap rate that is based on our capitalization rate study. And we've applied a 0.5% premium for, again, the location, the fact that it's in the Inkster Faraday neighborhood, which brings us to a value of $2,646,000 for the subject. And we ask the board to reduce the assessed value to that number of $2,646,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Barakis?
Okay, so you put a half-point premium on it. I haven't seen it, but do you guys ever lower the cap rate because of a good area? Or is it just premium?
Usually just a premium there. I haven't had one, and yeah, it's our baseline cap rates. Our cap rate is based on good locations, so I've yet to run into a property where I've had to do that though. Maybe other agents have. I'm not too sure.
Okay. Okay, so page 7B, you've got a breakdown here of how your repair and maintenance was stabilized. So, there's one line here, flooring replacement, where you took the 4-year average and they did $35,695 worth of flooring in 2017. And the other years, they did $625, nothing, and then $2,352 respectively. And they did 35 in 2017. The average was 9,668, and it was stabilized at the average. If we looked at a longer horizon, would it not be highly likely that the average would go down for that line item? Because the $35,000 with the flooring in 1 year, it seems like a pretty big revamp, would you agree?
I would agree. So typically when I do the stabilizations, if I'm still within the maximum per suite range, and we have included some details regarding repairs and maintenance in our repair and maintenance study. So quite a few pages going around here. With our repair and maintenance study, we've contacted apartment owners. You can see on page 17, the maximum that a property owner would typically spend on flooring would be $400 per suite, and I'm still within, the stabilization is still within that range, but I would agree that it's more likely than not that the average would go down. But because I was still within that range, or because I was still below the maximum, I did just go with that number.
Okay, so it'd be 400 per suite every year, is that what you're saying?
Maximum 400 per suite. It could go down.
Okay. All right.
Or sorry, it would be within the range,
Okay.
up to 400 per suite.
Those are my questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread?
Just a question in general about R&M. Do you have a sense of what the break points would be to, like, per suite R&M, not keep the building up to speed, keep the building up to speed? So are you spending $400 a month to let it deteriorate? Are you spending $1,000 to keep it, do you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah,
Do you have
I understand.
a chart in your mind that would tell us that?
Yeah, so from the properties that I've done so far in this cycle, I've seen that if they're spending less than $700 to $800 per suite, that's not putting, you're not putting too much into that property to help keep it up to livable standards.
Okay.
If we go above that, we would be keeping it livable there. I have seen that the most, the properties that are of the highest quality, that the management company, the property owners would probably spend $1,200 to over $1,300 per suite on them. That's from what I've seen with the properties that I have.
That would actually
Assessed.
improve the per suite appearance, functionality.
That would improve the functionality, yes, because, well, we gotta take into account the renovations as well, if that's accounted for. But if they wanted to keep the building competitive, I can see them spending about $1,200 to $1,300 at minimum. Yeah.
So 800 to 1,200 kind of allows you to maintain the building. Below that, it starts to degrade.
I would say so, yes.
Okay.
And to be fair to Mr. Barakis, looking at it, yeah, the 35,000, I probably should have I agree that I probably should have adjusted that number down, or maybe only consider 2014 to 2016 for that, for the flooring replacement.
Okay. And is that your opinion, or is that based on studies that you've done or your firm has done?
For the ranges that I've given,
Yes.
That's based on my sole opinion,
Okay.
off of the properties that I've done.
I respect that. Thank you.
Yeah.
No further
Mr.
questions?
Pike?
Have you gone through the property?
330 Mackenzie, I did take, I did do an external inspection of the property. It doesn't look all too much different than, the external portion doesn't look all too much different than what's included in my brief on page 1 here. I visited the property 2 nights ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
You haven't been inside.
I haven't been inside.
I just note the effective age, 1968. So I'm seeing that there's a sale, it's an old sale. I guess it's 8 years prior to the reference date.
The sale for 330 Mackenzie?
So,
Yeah, that's 8 years
yeah. And
prior to the reference date, so
so
the market's gonna change.
market is going to change. Has the market not appreciated in that time?
Generally, yes, but if the market has generally appreciated, but we can't assume that they all appreciate it at the same rate. If they did all appreciate at the same rate, I think we could reasonably expect that appreciation to be sort of an unhealthy appreciation with regards to the increase of property values. So it's all based on stabilization, what
Of course.
the property is able to attain an income. That's how that's, in my opinion, how we should look at this.
I understand. I'm just trying to understand based on some of the numbers that we're seeing here, so the quality of the property on the inside. Do you have any further comment on that?
For the inside, I do not, though.
Okay. Thanks. No questions.
And my questions have all been asked, so I'm good, thank you. Any need for summation?
No thanks.
Okay. So we'll move on then to 360 Mackenzie. Mr. Barakis, when you're ready, please.
Okay, 360 Mackenzie, file number 19-2282, roll number 14040188000. It's a WHRC not-for-profit. 2020 is the roll year, April 1st, 2018. Actual year built 1913, 1939 on the reference date. On the effective year built, obviously it's 2020 now. If nothing happened to it, it probably would have been demolished. So we've got an effective year built to account for the upkeep on the property throughout its life cycle. 7 suites, 5 outdoor parking spots, construction class D, wood or steel frame exterior walls. Page 2 shows the request for income information. They've been compliant, but it's rent geared to income, so we don't consider their actuals. You'll see on page 3 the modeled workup. It's got a 7.1% cap on it due to its age, size and area. So it's in the oldest age bucket. It's in the area that gets the premium, and based on its size as well, that's why you see a high cap rate on it. 7 2-bedroom suites, modeled average monthly rent is $608.92. Comparables are found on page 4. 3 of them are of similar vintage. In regards to effective year built, they're a combination of, all 4 comps are a combination of Bachelor 2 and 1 and 2 bedroom units. Comparable number 3, the one next door that we just talked about, has a rent of $671. So we're below all our comps in terms of rent. Looks like our rent supported. Cap rate evidence, page 5, page 5A. Page 6A, you'll see our mailer that they submitted, ending March 31, 2018, so we're right up to the reference date. You see there's a subsidy. They're claiming what their potential market rent is, but again, it's rent geared to income on this property, being that it's WHRC, so we just use the actuals. So we use the model on this one. Page 9 shows an exterior of the property. Looks like, from what I can garner, it looks like the roof is in good shape. The exterior looks like to be in good shape considering the original construction date was 1913. I haven't been inside of it, but it looks like the outside is in good condition, especially considering its age. Page 10, the last one. Got a permit here, February 2018, for fire repair. There was a fire in one of the suites, so they need to do some smoke sealing, insulation, vapor barrier, and drywall, cosmetic work, mechanical and electrical as well. The basement's getting new drywall, sound insulation, and cosmetic work. There's some windows being replaced as well. No change to the opening sizes. The declared construction value on the permit is almost $100,000. So, I don't know if this permit, $98,000 seems like a lot of work for just one suite in particular. I think while they're in there, they probably did a couple of them. I haven't inspected. I can't say for certain, but looking at the construction value, that's what my hypothesis would be. So, not-for-profit, we went with model on this one, our rent supported. And we've got a 58.64 expense ratio. To indicate the fact that we have it set at a lower income quality to recognize that it is social housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Oliveros?
Just a question about the effective age that was applied to the building. Just wondering how that came about. Was that because of the construction permit? This is just for my education purposes. I'm not disputing the effective age, but I'm just curious how
Yeah,
that
for
all
sure.
works.
I don't have a note in regards to the effective age in particular, but when I look at the last 2 pages of my brief. I look at how it looks on the outside. It looks like at some point it must have got a new exterior. And the permit for about 100 grand, so I'd say there's definitely a need for an effective age.
The cap rate that was applied of 7.1%, so a premium was already added to that. Is that an accurate statement?
Well, it's age, area, and size, so it's in, though it has an effective age, it's still pre-46, and it's in market region 4, so oldest bucket, area with a premium, you end up with a 7.1.
So location is taken into consideration?
Yes, it definitely has been. And in terms of it being social housing, we have it at a lower income quality, which is reflective of the rents that have been assigned to it and the almost 60% expense ratio, taking into account its age and also that it is social housing.
No further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
Yeah, just a curiosity here. You think that was an old church? one
Could
time?
have, you know
That's what it
what?
looks like.
That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, residents on the back with
It's
all
got the
of
windows
that.
on the side.
Yeah, okay. Finances, financials?
It'd be interesting to get inside of that and actually see what the
Yeah, how they
demise.
did it. No, I have nothing further.
Okay, Mr. Peitsch?
I have no thanks.
And I do not either, so Mr. Oliveris, please proceed.
Alright, so the subject property, 360 Mackenzie Street, roll number 14-04018800. So going to just page 2 of my brief here. The subject property is located on the west side of Mackenzie Street, at the southwest corner of College Avenue and Mackenzie Street, of the College Avenue and Mackenzie Street intersection in the Winnipeg 3 area of Winnipeg. Of course. The improvement is a part 1-story and part 2-story structure with an effective age of 1939 and is presently being used as a multiple family residential building. The site size, according to the City of Winnipeg Property and Taxation Records, is 9,971 square feet and zone RMFS. We have a total of 7 suites, including 6 2-bedroom suites and 1 3-bedroom unit. Going to page 7 for or 7A for my income valuation. We don't dispute the rents that the model has generated. However, the vacancy is a concern. So I understand that that there was a fire, as Mr. Baracus has stated. But we can see here that even in years prior, that the vacancy rates have been substantially high, but we do recognize that it is a low seat count, so that would take into effect. But we have applied a 5% vacancy rate. Again, we recognize that there may be some laundry income and miscellaneous income, which we have added to the for the income for this property. And for the expenses, following the same logic unless otherwise stated, we have used the 2017 figure on page 7B. We can see how the repairs and maintenance were stabilized. So we removed any figures that were abnormal, that's marked in red. And the notes on the right-hand side of that page would show how we stabilize each of those expenses. So for that line 27, we come up to a stabilized repair and maintenance of 1,236 per suite. And applying a base cap rate of 6.6%. We applied a 1% premium, similar to how we applied premium for 595 Mountain, which takes into account the site-specific issues related to WHRC as well as the location. So with that, we asked this board to reduce the assessed value from $291,000 to $184,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barakis, questions?
Yeah, just let me check this. No questions.
Thank you. Mr. Penn?
I have none, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
Have you been to the property?
I just drive by for the external portion, just went around the building.
You didn't go inside.
Not inside, no.
Do you know if there's a suite in the basement? There's an 1,812 square foot basement according to the city. Do you know if there's a suite there?
No, I do not.
May I redirect to the assessor?
Sure, yes.
Do
Yeah.
you know if there's a suite in the basement?
I do not.
You don't. I don't see windows, so my imagination would say there isn't, but that doesn't mean anything, does it?
I haven't inspected it.
Okay. Nothing further.
Thank you. So, sorry, back to your vacancy rate here.
Yes.
So, I know that there's not a lot of suites here. Is that the reason you're thinking that maybe it's so high? Any other reason? I know obviously there was a fire, so there's probably, that explains the 1 year, but you're pointing out that it's high in other years as well.
Yes, so we're looking at the properties in perpetuity, which is why we applied the 5% here. But I would say that because of the low suite count, when you take 1 or 2 suites away from there, the vacancy rate's gonna bump up. So it's all just to do with the suite count. So
Okay, that's all the questions I had then. Any need for summary from everything?
Yeah. So, it says on my last page that they spent almost $100,000 on this property. We have it valued at $291,000. For 7-unit apartment building, just had a bunch of work done to it. You know, there's value in the land. It would seem to me that the applicant's requested assessment of $184,000, it just seems really unreasonable, just given the value of the asset itself. If I could get it for $184,000, I'd buy it today. That's my opinion.
Okay, any summary?
no summary.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's maybe do one more and then we'll take a quick break. How does that sound?
Sure.
Is that good with everybody? So, the next property is 38 Carlton Street. We are dealing with amount of assessed value. And you can proceed when you're ready, Mr. Brooks.
Is something to review this week? File number 19-2371, phone number 12092630000, 38 Carlton Street, roll year 2012. The April 1st, 18 reference date assessed value, $1,251,000. Last last go around, it was 1,093,000, gave us a 5.5 cap. Parcel is apartments, one building, 2 stories, built in 1959. It's on Carlton, 6 properties off of Assiniboine, so near Legislative Building. They've got that street where part of it's a bike path. In my opinion, it's a very desirable area. In regards to its proximity to downtown, Osborne Village, and if you take a bike to work, it isn't too far from that spot either. So 1959, 14 suites, 6 outdoor parking spots, construction class D wood or steel frame exterior walls. You'll see on page 2, they've been good in handing in their information. The average monthly rent on page 3 as assigned by the model for the 6 bachelor and 8 one-bedroom units is $742.20 with our model parameters and our cap rate as per age, area, and size. You get our rounded valuation of $1,251,000. Rent comparables are found on page 4. So we've got 4 other properties in the area. We've got Carlton, Smith, Assiniboine, and Hargrave, and they all are a mix of bachelor and one-bedroom units. So when you look at the rents, the rent assigned by the model is highly similar to the, in my opinion, highly similar comparables, which have effective year belts that are either equivalent or slightly less than the subject property. Our gross floor area per unit is bracketed by the comparables, and as is our average monthly rent per unit. So pretty strong evidence for what sort of rent is possible on this property. Cap rate evidence for a 5. We've got our mailer on page 7, showing the financials that have been submitted to the city. Looking at the condition of the property itself, you can go to page 16. It's an ad from Asteroid taken from the internet. So located Broadway, Assiniboine, downtown neighborhood near the Forks and Osborne Village. Just upgraded plumbing, lighting, windows, sidewalks, kitchens, and bathrooms in 2015. There's some parking available. That's the descriptor on it, and I got pictures from the website as well. Page 18 onwards, you can see that it's redone. They indicated that it was redone in 2015. Now I don't know if that's all the suites, or they began in 2015 and then they started renting them out. I think that it is highly unlikely that they vacated the entire building and did it all at once. They most likely waited for tenants to move out, and then they were able to get in there, renovate, and advertise that particular suite, and then boost that suite up in terms of rent. So my hypothesis is that as an ongoing process, looking at the vacancy rates from 16 to 17, it stands to reason that they didn't do every suite in 15, because 15 is only saying 2.3 in terms of vacancy, and we've got 15.9 and 6.9 for 16 and 17. So I think it's an ongoing basis. We're looking at the current asset as it stands, so it stands to reason that progressively more and more suites would become renovated. As such, you'll see when we get to the applicant's brief that the rent assigned by our model and effective gross income is higher, but we are looking at the current asset, and currently, as per the trending vacancy rate, it would seem that there would be more suites renovated now to the current date than there would be back during the time these mailers were submitted. So for that reason and the strength of our rental comps, I feel that we're good, very good on the rent. Because we are looking at the condition of the current asset, not just the asset during the time prior to the reference dates. That's my evidence, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olivers.
So, just with regards to the cap rate that was applied, you said, you did say it was in a desirable area, correct?
I personally, I think it's a very desirable area in terms of, you know, we got small units. There is, again, there's only some parking, but this could be a demographic where public transportation, bicycling is something where a tenant, that could be their main means to get around. And we've got a bike path right behind there, it's close to the ledge, it's close to the forks. I think it's a great neighborhood. Like if I was renting a spot and this was kind of the spot in life I was at, I'd like to live in this area.
Looking at the comps, so they range from $729 to $777. If the area was desirable, wouldn't the rents be higher than what they are? There are other areas around downtown where renters would likely pay a premium. Around the perimeter of downtown.
Yeah, and for the rents, that's a reflection of the being bachelors. I mean, bachelors are smaller. It's gonna be mostly single person living in there. And so you can only ask so much for a bachelor. So the cap rate captures the desirability of the overall investment. I think if Asteroid didn't feel that their investment was strong, they wouldn't spend a bunch of money renovating all the suites to bring the place up to what the market can get. And it looks like our rent is very supportable by the comparables.
All right, no further questions.
Thank you. Mr. White? Mr. Whitburn?
So not only did they upgrade the suites, and you're not quite sure what stage that's at. They're not completed all 14, in your opinion?
And again, I haven't inspected it, but when the ad here says renovated in 15, but when I look at the vacancy rate, especially if you look at page 7 of the applicant's brief, we've got a higher vacancy. So I know they don't clear the place out. They can't just clear the place out. People are in there. So it would seem that I think they do it piecewise.
And in addition, they've done the roof, they've paved the lot, they've done the water pipes.
Yeah, like they're investing in this place.
Yeah.
For sure.
When that happens, Matthew, when do you actually change the effective date? Because I still see on your brief 1959.
So what we do is we look at the rents that are being assigned
Yeah.
to this property, because we get the mailers, right?
Right.
And so as a department, we ask for the mailers so we can calibrate our model so it is reflective of what actually is going on out there. So,
No, sorry, the rent is connected to the improvements? you
yeah,
think?
the rent, the cap rate, pardon me. The effective age will change the rent. So as you turn the effective age up, so if these other properties in my comparable, you'll see that there is similar effective year bill. So what the model says is, okay, so they have a similar effective year built to them. This is the rent they're getting. We have an effective year built on this one. And then so it assigns the rent. When the effective year built would be increased, say, we get the mailers in the future and they're showing a potential gross rent of $150,000, maybe when they get more suites done, then we would be going out there and taking an inspection. But just because someone puts out an ad doesn't mean they're all completed and then we automatically just crank it. We're trying to be reflective of what they're telling
So
us.
you would go and actually inspect?
Of course,
Yeah.
of course.
So your surmise is that the rent would increase?
Yeah, it would be indicated to us by the mailers that they submit.
And if the effective date changed, would that affect your cap? So, oh, sorry, let me back up. If the rent increases, then the NOI increases, hopefully, typically.
Typically, yeah, the
Yeah.
expense ratio would be acting on a higher rent,
Yeah.
but typically the net operating would increase. And it may or may not bump it into a different cap rate category,
Right.
depending on what level of effective age increase is required to bring the model rent assigned to this property up to what they're submitting and what other properties.
Where it falls into the threshold year.
Right, yeah, for
Okay.
sure.
Because if you don't increase your NO, or your cap, then you're going to have overassessment. Typically.
Well, if we increased our cap, it would push the assessment down.
If you don't increase your cap,
It-
push the assessment up.
Yeah, if we
The
don't.
corollary of what you just said.
So if we increase our cap, like going to like a 7,
Yeah.
the higher cap would pull the net operating income that is based on the value downwards.
Right.
So it just depends on, what they're submitting to us in terms of income and expenses. The goal of our department is to be as accurate as possible as we can with the information that we have.
So with what you're faced with right now, how many years is it taking to make that change to the effective date, which then stimulates all these other steps?
Well, we'd have to, it would be based on what sort of income and expenses are submitted to us.
So
We're
probably
not
not
just-
till next cycle or the cycle
Well,
after?
we review every year.
Okay.
And we
okay.
make changes and we just refine
Yeah.
as the market goes.
Just want to understand how that
Yeah.
flow goes. Okay,
Yeah, for
good.
sure.
Thank you. No other questions?
Okay, thank you, and I have no questions, so Mr. Oliveris, please proceed.
Alright, so the subject property located at 38 Carlton Street, roll number 12-09263-0000, file number 19-2371. We're asking this board to reduce the assessed value from $1,251,000 to $778,000. So the subject property is located on the south side of Carlton Street, between Broadway and Assiniboine Avenue in the Broadway Assiniboine area of Winnipeg. The property consists of a 2.5-story structure built in 1959, and it's presently being used as a multi-family residential building. Total gross floor area is 9,420 square feet. The subject property has a total of 14 units, including 6 bachelor suites, 8 one-bedroom units, and there are 6 outdoor parking stalls reported as being on the site. We have an assessed land area of 6,019 square feet, and the zoning is D for downtown living. Page 3 of my brief, you can see further map there, and this just came up. So we're looking at the property in its current physical condition. So that is why we took the rents in place as they are. We weren't speculating what the rents would be post renovations. So again, we're looking at it in its present physical condition. Going to page 7, we've used the actual rents for 2017, and we have applied the 3% vacancy. So we do recognize that there are renovations being done to the property, and looking at it in perpetuity, 3% does make sense to us as well. could be taking some time for the property to catch up, given when the renovations are completed. We add laundry and parking income, and for my expenses, again, following the same logic, biggest thing with the point that seems to always be, that seems to be an issue would be the repair and maintenance. So 2015 to 2017, I recognize that there's likely some renovations going on there, which is why I took the average, only 2 years, 2013, 2014, to come up to my repair and maintenance expense. Again, applying a 6.25% cap rate to the net operating income brings us to our value of $778,000. And yeah, we are requesting the Board of Revision to reduce the assessed value to $778,000.
Thank you, Mr. Rokas.
Did you add a premium to the cap rate on this one?
I don't believe so, not for this one. Let me double check that point. So 1959, 6.25, I did not add a premium for
Okay.
this area.
Given that as a 59, it sits on the edge of a cap rate grouping. If they have an effective age of, say, 1960, you would get a 6% cap, given that at least some of the suites have been renovated. You think perhaps maybe a lower cap rate is appropriate?
I didn't apply an effective age to it, but given the extent of the renovations, we could see here on page 10 of my brief, I have included the same photos that the assessor has as well. It looks like there has been some upgrades, nothing too tremendous in my opinion though. But I mean, if that suits a 1960s build, yeah, we could apply a 6 cap to that.
Okay, and then just on page 7, just one more question. Do you think that the potential gross rent going from 16 to 17, it going down, do you think perhaps in their reporting they didn't account for perhaps some suites that have been occupied with workers to renovate that are vacant? I guess that's not a fair question to be asked. You know what? Don't worry about that. I'm good. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread?
Nothing.
Mr. Peich?
Just one quick one. I look at the suite mix, 6 bachelors. How might that reflect on cap, or does it?
Okay, let's look at the cap rates over here. Sorry, these are mixed into one of my papers here. Sorry about that, couldn't have gone too far. There it is. So looking at the suite mixes that are on our cap rate study here, it's a smaller property. So it having 6 bachelor units and 8 one-bedroom units. I think the 6.25% cap rate is fair. 2-bedroom units with a property of this size, I don't know how typical that would be. Yeah, with a property of this size, applying a downward adjustment or an upward adjustment to the cap rate, I don't think would be warranted. So I think going with our baseline 6.25 would be fair.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
For the R&M, you've stabilized that lower than any of the actuals here, correct? That are shown here. I'm assuming you removed stuff from the,
So for the actual, or for the stabilized R&M, I went with the average of 2013-14, so.
2013, okay, sorry.
2013, 2014.
Okay,
yes.
you may have said that and I may have missed it. Okay, that's because I was just looking at the most recent years, and so you went back to before they started the renos is what you've done there.
Exactly, yeah, so I would typically stabilize, but given the amount of renovations, I thought it fair just to go with the
Okay.
repairs and maintenance prior to
Okay.
when those renovations, otherwise I'd be skewing the figures.
Okay. All right, that's all I had. Thank you. Any need for summation here?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll just take a quick 5-minute or so break. I'm going to call the meeting back to order. And the next property on the docket is 36 Carlton Street. And this appears to be a sister property to one we just heard, so maybe in the presentation, just point out any differences or anything unique you think we need to hear. So, Mr. Baracus, when you're ready.
Just read out the roll number, 19-2370. The file number, roll number is 1209263, 1036 Carlton. Assessed value $1,251,000 for 2020. It is a sister building. It's got the same assessment. It's in the same area. You'll notice that on page 16, asteroid end. This is 36/38 Carlton Street. So same information that I had previously presented. You can apply that to this property as well in regards to renovations and general suitability of the location. That's my evidence, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Oliveros?
Yes, so the subject property, 36 Carlton Street, roll number 12092631000. I'll skip over pages 1 to 2 of my brief. Similar to the subject property, we got a little bit of a difference in value just because of what the numbers were telling us. But I agree, they're sister properties. So applying our income and expenses, looking at it from a site-specific basis, we applied a 6.25% cap rate again, brings us to our value of $824,000. But I would just like to mention too, that I do recognize that there are renovations being done to 36 Carlton as well as 38 Carlton. I think we should still be looking at it in its current physical condition, and to apply an upward adjustment to the rents based on speculation instead of what the property is actually achieving in its present physical condition, in my opinion, would be inappropriate. So again, using actuals, we are asking this board to reduce the assessed value to $824,000.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Baracus?
No questions, thanks.
Mr. Pike?
I have none, thanks.
Mr. Whitbread? I have no questions either. Thank you very much. Next item on the docket, 70 Smith Street. Dealing with amount of assessed value. Mr. Baracus, when you're ready.
File number 19-2485. Roll number 12092510100 70 Smith. Roll year 2020 for first reference, the assessed value is $781,000. zoning D, downtown living, construction class D, wood or steel frame walls. It's a 55 with no effective age on it. There are, let me see this one. 15 one-bedroom suites, 3-story, 6 outdoor parking spots. They've been compliant, handing their mailers in. Subject sale history, there's an $11 million sale that included other properties, so that is not at all reflective of the value of the property, so please do not take that into consideration. So this one, looking at the numbers that they've submitted to the city, it looks like they've been essentially operating at a loss, especially when you look at most clearly illustrated on page 7 of the applicant's brief. You'll see that they've been running expense ratios on average for the past 3 years at 113% effective gross income. So how do you value a property like this? Well, in my opinion, it's in a really good area because it's downtown. It's, if you go to page 4, this is how I was able to make a determination that the assessment was okay. So, if the property is being operated at a loss at a year-over-year basis, where the expenses are in excess of the actual income in place, I even went and looked at what potentially just the land would be worth. So you'll see, I found one I was able to grab here. Sale date April 7, 2017. So I got a map. You see there's a red box in the middle of that picture I provided. That's the land sale, 44 Hargrave. If you look in the top right corner of that picture, there's my cursor that's got the X on it. That's subject property. So that's the proximity we're looking in terms of land value of pretty much the same size. The subject property's land value, land size rather, is greater than the sales comparable. They've got the same zoning too. So though the parcel use code differs based on what's going on currently on the subject property, the zoning is the same. So permitted uses and respective restrictions wouldn't differ between these properties. So we've got pieces of land selling 1 year before the reference date in excess of what the subject property is assessed at. Makes me believe that we're okay. We have this as low as possible in the model to try and reflect the fact, because it is an apartment, it does get pushed into an income style valuation. But however, if they are operating at a loss over a year-over-year basis, perhaps a land valuation is more accurate. So based on the land sale that's right near the reference date, I didn't make any changes. That's my evidence. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Oliver?
Yes, I do have questions, as well as some rebuttal evidence to submit, so I guess we'll hand this out first, and then as we're going through.
You
I'll
can
ask
hand
some
it out and then
questions.
we'll come to it after
Yeah.
we've done questions on
For sure.
the city's presentation. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Norris. You did say that this was in a good area, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. Have you been by this area, taking a walk down there, or
I've been in the
most
area.
likely driven past it?
I've been in the area before, yeah.
It's quite a busy corner that is on.
Yeah, that is correct, yes.
Yeah. So it's on the Midtown Bridge. It's one of the main, what is it? I think they call it artillery roads within Winnipeg. One of the more busier, I guess you could say, intersections.
Yeah, it's definitely, if you look at my page 4, that's a fact. You see how Midtown Bridge comes down around the corner there and meets up with Navy Way. So there is a level of traffic that comes with this location.
So it'd be really loud there for a good portion of the day, is that correct? All the cars
I mean, I
passing
haven't
through,
been
or-
in the suites, but compared to adjacent streets, it would have a higher level of noise.
Okay. Do you think, in your opinion, do you think that would likely disturb the tenants of this property?
I haven't been inside the property. I couldn't tell you that.
Alright, so we have a smaller apartment with 15 suites, correct?
It's got 15 suites, yes.
Okay. The model is applied a 5.1% cap rate, indicating that it appears that this is being viewed as sort of a low-risk property, but we can see from the income statements though, that's not the case. Would you agree with that?
Well, they're operating at a loss, which is atypical. So I don't think using the way they're operating the property is a good indication for market value.
But, okay, that's the way they're operating the property, but RTB guidelines, they're only allowed to increase the rent so much every year. This property, we could tell, and I've done an external inspection of this property. Do you think it's likely that they would get an approval for an above guideline increase according to the RTB guidelines?
Well, no, they'd have to renovate it, definitely. So they wouldn't get an RTB guideline unless they significantly renovated the place.
Okay, so the property does need to be significantly renovated.
Well, I know, looking at your page 7, they're operating at a loss, which is really atypical. So that's why I felt looking at land value is more appropriate, based on the adjacent sale. What jumps out, well, you know, I'll save more of yours for yours, so. In my opinion, anyone who would buy this place, looking at the financials, would knock it down and build something new.
Okay. But then we'd get into the issue of highest and best use for the property, so we'd speculate as to what they would actually build on there. Have you done that, considering that considering that you're looking at possibly valuing this property in terms of its land value?
Well, it's not an apartment that's being operated at a loss year over year, definitely not. So it's inappropriate to use their numbers. Most notably using 30%, 36.7% of effective gross income going to utilities per year, typically averages around 15. You can check other briefs in this package. So they're paying more. The way the building is set up is that the utilities are, just the utility expense alone is eating away a significant portion of this property. So I would imagine that anyone buying this property wouldn't be buying it for its income in place. They'd either be buying it to renovate it and turn it around, or they'd be knocking it down. But I don't put any weight on the income in place.
But we're still establishing a value based on the income approach.
We are, that's the way it's looked at for typical apartments being operated efficiently by prudent owners. I wouldn't say that this apartment, as per the numbers, falls into that category.
The balance of my questioning would be indicated, would be presented in my rebuttal evidence, so that's all my questions for now.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Whitbread?
Yeah, I'm looking at your cap of 5.1. Well, first, I'm very confused by your brief. Because you're not indicating the number of suites here, you're telling us there are 15. I didn't see that in your brief. You have a wall height of 11. Have you got the wrong page on the front of here? I'm a little bit confused by your page 1. Talk about a wall height of 11 feet. Yeah, something's amiss, sir. No number of suites. Parking is there, yes. So just a question on your format.
Oh,
Am I making sense?
If you go to page 3, you'll see that there's 15 one-bedroom suites. The formatting is a little bit different. It's probably because I was looking at this as like a land brief, so we have different categories in our system. When you're creating a brief, you click a different heading, and then, I know you've been in on other types of hearings, and they've got different
Two
line items
formats.
that comes up, right?
Yeah.
So it would have been a different format.
Okay, just so I understand,
Mhm.
I've not missed something here.
For sure.
Okay, so, based on that, and I had to go to the brief from the appellant to see photographs, it looks appalling from the outside. And yet you haven't used your discretion to make an adjustment to the cap.
I'm putting the valuation, the weight of my confirmation of the overall valuation is based on the land
So
sale.
the land, not on the income.
Absolutely not, and I wrestled with this one for a bit before I decided that it had to be not on looking at the income in place, because the income in place would produce a negative value, and that's not what this is like.
I think I was getting to that point.
Yeah.
Eventually, that what is the real value of this? I
Right.
get that you're going to the land, so
Yeah.
that clarifies for me. Thank you very much.
Mr. Pudge?
You've noted that you believe the value is in the land. You've described the structure as a liability, and that from a utility standpoint, the numbers don't equate.
It would be a negative value.
Right, and therein lies my question. Do we need to be subtracting the demolition cost from the value of the land?
Well, if we were looking at the land value, then yeah, we would. I don't have any demolition permits or anything. We're at $789. The land nearby sold for $858.5. It wouldn't be the difference in that the cost to demolish this would be far less. Also looking at this property, I haven't inspected it, but if it's structurally good, this might be an opportunity where someone goes in and they do a bunch of renovations and they're able to get an RTB exemption and get some of the rents we've seen on the previous properties. But what I'm saying is, looking at the asset as in place, the income that's shown here isn't how someone would purchase it based on. They would do something with it.
Right, yeah. Okay, thank you. Other questions?
So my question's a similar vein. If I looked, so like you're talking about the land value, even though the workup shows it differently, but
Yeah,
to get to that number, but if you, the land sale comp that you brought us was $142 a square foot. And if I use that, unless I made an error, if I use that with the land area on this property, it comes to about 980,000.
yeah.
So now, so were you thinking of demolition, or?
I wasn't looking at an increase on this one.
Okay, so that's why we're here, okay.
I'm just,
Yeah.
it looks like that our
All right,
valuation.
'cause I just wondered if that was with demolition costs removed or something, yeah, no.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you, so now, Mr. Oliveros, if you want to present your rebuttal evidence, please?
Yes, so my rebuttal evidence for the assessor's brief here, so it focuses specifically on the land sale. So 44 Hargrave Street, this has come up as a concern to our office in previous hearings. So the roll number that 44 Hargrave Street was under, 12-0925900000, it no longer exists. So at the time of sale, the property, it was a vacant lot. It was previously improved with a hotel that burnt down in 2015. However, for this property, it was purchased together with properties to the north, 54 and 62 Hargrave Street. So this indicates to us that the purchaser did pay a premium to assemble this site for future development, and it's considered an untypically motivated sale. So we have a motivated sale on our hands, which is why the sale price per square foot for this land sale was so high. We have provided supporting documents I have provided supporting documents on pages 2 to 11 of my brief. You can see here 44 Hargrave Street. It was owned by a numbered Manitoba company. Then it moved to Hargrave Investments as of the statement date May 11th, 2018. 62 Hargrave Street, Audis Holdings, and subsequently it was also purchased. You can see from pages 6 to 8 of my brief, it was also purchased by Hargrave Investments. I went by the property as well when I inspected other properties on the docket. We are looking at a multi-story apartment building on there.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Baracus, do you have any questions?
Yeah, okay, so page 1. It says purchased together with properties 54, 62. Just so the panel is clear, the price $858 for this piece of land, that was for just that piece of land. It wasn't including the other properties as well. So they were purchased as well, but they had their own separate sale prices.
They were purchased as well. That's a good question, whether that includes that price. Yeah, I believe that it was just purchased on its own, but when we look at the individual sales, somebody, or an investor, a purchaser, they clearly had an idea for these 3 plots of land. So in order to do that, they would have had to purchase another portion of land to do so. And with that being said, when they do have that plan, they want to build whatever they want to build on there, they would pay a premium for a specific plot of land. I didn't look at this from a land approach, but I can say that the price that we have here on your land comparable sales on page 4, it's likely that they did pay a premium for this property.
Okay, so just to be clear, that $858 that was just the vacant land? It wasn't 858 inclusive of the building with the apartment on it and the other one? Because they bought those separately.
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have
Do you know-
anything that would state otherwise.
Was the vendor of the vacant land and the purchaser, that was an arm's length transaction, correct?
Arm's length transaction, but it was atypically motivated.
Okay. That's my questions for rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. French.
No, thanks.
Mr. Whitburn?
Nothing,
No,
thanks.
and I don't either, so thank you. So now we can go on with your presentation, please.
So subject property, 70 Smith Street, roll number 12-0925-101-00. Page 1 of my brief, we're asking this board to reduce the assessed value from $789,000 to $260,000, and I realize that is a very low number, but I will get more into that through my valuation, when I get into my valuation here. So page 2 of my brief. Subject property is located on the south side of Smith Street, near the Smith Street and Navy Way intersection in the Broadway, Assiniboine area of Winnipeg. Consists of a 3-story structure built in 1955, presently being used as a multiple family residential building. The total gross floor area is approximately 13,118 square feet, and it has a total of 15 one-bedroom units, and there are 6 reported outdoor parking stalls on the site. The site itself, it's rectangular in shape with 6,903 square feet of assessed land area and zone D for downtown living. Page 3, I provide a further map just showing the amenities around there. Now, we did continue a site-specific approach with this property. The rents are what they are. We can tell already that this is a risky investment, should someone purchase it. So, looking on page 7 of my brief, I worked out the gross potential rents based off of the rent roll that is found on page 29 to 30 of my brief, or page 32, sorry. And we can also see from the income statements that are supplied in the appendix that the vacancy rate has been very high from 2013 to 2017, 2015 to 2017. We're looking at about 33% vacancy based off of what we see in the appendix. I'll direct you to those pages just to let you know where I got that info from. So it starts on page 14. You can see that the average vacant space, 33%, and it continues onward through that. So the vacancy rate I have applied 25%, we would cap it at that. I believe that's typically what we do for commercial properties though. So just applying that principle, I applied a 25% vacancy rate. We have included parking income and miscellaneous income as we have in our previous valuations. The expenses, again, we applied them on a site-specific basis. We came up to a 96.3% expense ratio, which is, I understand, abnormally high. So, what we did for this property was, in past municipal board appeals, we can see on page 10 to 13 of my brief. It was a certificate of agreement, but we could see how that value was approached. So, with properties that have abnormally high expenses, we would apply a cap on that, or a maximum, to be more precise, of a 70% expense ratio of the effective gross income. And with that, we stabilized the actuals to see what we would come to but when I did see that it was higher than usual, I defaulted to the 70% expense ratio. And that's what I applied to my EGI to arrive at my net operating income. And we can see that this property itself, it's a risky asset. We've spoken with our clients regarding this property a few times, and they have not indicated to us any intentions to renovate, any intentions to demolish this building. So the present physical asset, that is what is there. So with that being said, a 6.25% cap rate, that is conservative in my opinion, but because we're already come to such a low value, we kept the 6.25% cap rate, and we come to a value of $260,000 for that. The balance of my report, I didn't mention this yet, I did mention I did do an external inspection, but on pages 37 to 39, the last few pages, I have provided photos of the subject property. And we can see here that the windows are not in the greatest condition. We have individual wall air conditioning units for that as well. So again, we're asking this board to reduce the assessed value, understand it's low, from $789,000 to $260,000.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brokus?
So, in stabilizing, you used almost 20,000 worth of utilities, which is 36.7% of effective gross income. Would you agree that's about twice as much as what a typical apartment runs at for utilities in terms of percentage of effective gross income?
In terms of utilities, right?
Yeah, utilities.
Okay. Sorry, I was
on-
making sure it wasn't Arna.
No, just the utilities.
Okay.
Would you agree that typically it runs around 15 to 20?
I would agree with that, but I believe that's just a function of the rents being so low on this property. And
Okay.
yeah, that's just a function of the rents being really low, so
Okay.
maybe these utilities, if you were to put them with a property that is able to achieve better rents while not having as high of a vacancy rate as this property is, you'd probably get around to your number.
Okay.
For Tuesday.
It's owned by Slate Office REIT.
Yeah.
Do the owners own the adjacent properties?
They own that whole block, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
So I believe when they purchased this property, it came with the deal. I don't see
Okay.
a REIT purchasing something this small.
yeah, I would agree with you. Do you think a prudent investor would buy this property and operate it on a long-term basis based on a calculated net operating income of the 3 years leading up to the reference date?
Based off of the net operating income, the investor, sorry, you were asking if they would?
Yeah, if they would take the 15, 16, 17 and be like, okay, we'd stabilize it and then we'd cap it at 70 and then we'll make our sale price based on operating it just like they did in the previous 3 years onwards, or would they probably make a change?
They would likely make a change. I agree that they would try to renovate it, but if they see how this property is performing, what would definitely go through the mind of the investor is, well, how much money do I have to now put into this property in order to get my vacancy rates down, to get better rents for it, in order to recoup the costs, recoup my operating expenses. So I believe the market value that we have established would reflect that, because the investor would say that that they would have to put a high amount of capital into this in order to bring it up to better standards.
So with that capital, it probably, once they were done, they'd get a RTB bump, most likely?
Most likely, yes, but again, I would like to say that we are still looking at this property in its present physical condition on what it would be speculated to be in the future.
Okay. So just last question, you capped it at 70 and you mentioned something about that 70% being in some kind of municipal board order?
Yeah.
Could you point that out to me? I wasn't able to identify it.
It's on pages 10 to 13. So I understand when it comes to certificate agreements, and I think I get your concern there, we're not typically supposed to take certificate agreements into place, but when we see how we got there, I believe that it is appropriate to use that approach.
So just, I'm just looking like where it says 70%.
Yeah.
Is that on,
Sure.
you're saying on page 13?
Page 13, so the property,
So they use 70% using the 592,258 divided by, I don't know what that top number is.
so I think they use 92,258.
Oh, 92, I thought that was.
Yeah, and then they divide it by 131,442. That brings us to that 70% expense ratio. And it says here, the expenses increase from $78,024 to $92,258 to better reflect the higher expenses required to operate this building. All other aspects remain the same.
So they brought the expenses up, and in your case, we're bringing it down on this particular subject property.
Yeah, in this case, we're bringing it down, but I believe that that's just to set a maximum to it, so.
Okay. Those are my
It
questions.
appears that actually this was one of our agents, that the expenses were high, so when they stabilized it, it got low. The municipal board probably disagreed, they looked at the actuals and said, let's just apply a cap, or a maximum of 70% expense.
Okay, those are my questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread?
Yeah, I'll try and keep it brief. So what I hear you saying is this is part of a land accumulation purchased by Slate. It looks like 206, they spent $11 million.
Yes,
According to the,
it was a portfolio sale.
yeah, and this was part of that portfolio.
This was part of that portfolio.
And so for the last 14 years, if you judge the repair and maintenance for the last 3 years, they've spent nothing on the building, virtually nothing on the building. In your words, what they're spending would cause a degradation of the building, under $1,000 a month. Under $1,000 a year per suite.
Yes, so
Right,
we
so that's
went through those ranges earlier
yes,
on.
yeah.
So that, my range, yeah, I did say 800 to 900 would be here.
Degradation.
Yeah, we're
Degrading.
degrading it, yeah.
And so with that, you understand that it's going to become less attractive, you're going to have a hard time attracting tenants,
Exactly.
and you're going to ask for a 25% chronic vacancy rate,
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
And
And that is
so-
also reflected in the actuals.
Sorry?
It's also reflected in how the property has been performing with 33% vacancy from 15 to 17.
Well, sure it is.
Yeah.
And you're asking for a significant reduction, almost a third reduction in the assessment value based on that behavior by the owner.
Based on that behavior by the owner, yes.
Yeah, okay, I understand it. Thank you very much. No further questions.
I have none, thank you.
Yeah, my questions were similar to Mr. Whitbread's. I mean, yeah, I was going in the same place, so I don't really have anything else then. Any need for summation?
Good, thanks.
I would like to offer summation for this property, actually. So, with this property, we can see that even at the lower rents, I did demonstrate that even with the lower rents, that this property has a very high vacancy rate. If we try to put our RTB guidelines into effect, see if they can get that bump, the vacancy rate on this property, seeing as how it's performed before, would be highly speculative. And a typical investor would see the high risk of this property. So I believe that the $260,000, applying that 6.25% cap rate would be fair.
Thank you. Okay. Next property on the docket today is 40 Hargrave Street. We're dealing with amount of assessed value.
Okay,
Barakis, when you're ready.
File number 19-2397, roll number 12092592100, 40 Hargrave Street, assessed value $1,394,000. It's an apartment, one building, 1961, with no effective year built on it, 16 suites, 12 outdoor parking spots. There is a rec on this property. The property's, the 16 suites got 10 one-bedroom and 16 two-bedroom. I looked at the actuals, the model was a bit high. Page 3 shows the workup I did. Calculations on this property, and I looked at 3 years of R&M, and I redid the 5% management, because that's what we use as a standard, and totaled the expenses, subtracted them from the actuals, and came up to a net operating income of $64,497. Just glancing at the applicants at $65,123 on the net operating income, so we're pretty much the same. This one is a cap rate issue after my rec. So, assuming that's what we're gonna be talking about going onwards. So we've got a 5.1% cap, 40 Hargrave. So on Hargrave, 4 properties north of Assiniboine. In that area, we've been in this area, in this hearing, in my opinion, it's a very attractive area for renters. There are professional management companies and owners who own buildings, and they're putting significant investments in it, which shows that they are also in agreement with my opinion, saying that it is a strong rental neighborhood. 5.1 as per age, area, and size. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Olivers?
Okay, so, just for the cap rate, you said, a number of property owners are putting money into these properties because it's so desirable. Sorry, is that accurate? Is that what you said?
Yeah, well, we,
Okay.
a couple properties on Carlton, they've renovated. It's a good area. I mean, there's a finite amount of land around downtown Winnipeg and the river and the Forks and Osborne Village, and I think that isn't gonna change, but the demand, population wanting this spot to rent is only gonna get bigger as Winnipeg grows in people. So that's where I get part of my, plus I just like the area too.
Okay, so it's a desirable area. Then there would be a lot of competition. That would be a concern to the investor. Would you say that's accurate?
Competition, like
Competition
in terms
on
of
the
the
street.
potential purchasers for the property, yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, this property goes up for sale, there's gonna be a lot of people competing to wanna buy it, and that's gonna have an effect on the sale price and the cap rate.
That's true. With competition in the number of properties, though, we have other apartments in this area.
Yeah.
Would that be considered to the investor as well?
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of rental in this area. It's got a 3-year average vacancy rate of 1.2%, so on the rental side, it doesn't look like there's a shortage of people wanting to get in there, or that there's an oversupply when we've got 3% vacancy for the area, and we're at 1/3 of that.
But with the number of suppliers in this area, in the end, they would see that risk of the amount of competition that they would have, correct?
I think that they look at the vacancy rate and they'd say, if anything, there's more demand than there is supply. So I think it's the other way around, actually.
No further questions.
I just realized that I because Mr. Baracus was talking about, it's a cap rate issue, that I didn't actually ask you for the record, you're not accepting the recommendation, I'm assuming. After we've got, just for the record, okay, thank you. Mr. Peich, any questions?
I have no thanks.
Okay, Mr. Whitbread?
No.
No, and I have none, so please proceed.
Alright, so the subject property located at 40 Hargrave Street, roll number 12-0925-2100. Going to page 2, it's located on the south side of Hargrave Street, west of the Hargrave Street and Hargrave Place intersection in the Broadway, Assiniboine area of Winnipeg. Consists of a 2.5-story structure built in 1961, presently being used as a multifamily dwelling. The total gross floor area is 13,650 square feet. Subject property has a total of 16 units, including 10 one-bedroom suites and 6 two-bedroom suites. There are 12 reported outdoor parking stalls on site. We have an assessed land area of 9,053 square feet, and it is Zone D. So now going to page 7A of my brief. So again, we've based our evaluation on the actuals, or the actual experience of the property, applying a 3% vacancy rate. We have included the laundry and parking income as well, and miscellaneous income. For the expenses, follows the same logic as my previous presentations here. For the repair and maintenance, I have stabilized those. I have stabilized the repairs and maintenance on page 7B of my brief. So I know the assessor and I are coming up to similar NOIs, so I won't speak any more on that. So again, based on our cap rate study, we've applied a 6% capitalization rate, which brings us to our value of $1,085,000. I respect the fact that there are a number of amenities in the downtown area, but the amenities themselves, I believe there's only one grocery store around there, so there are limitations into the types of amenities that are available though, in comparison to our cap rate comparables. So I believe that a 6% cap rate, that is fair, and we are asking this board to decrease the assessed value to $1,085,000.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Baracus?
No questions, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Whitbread?
Nothing.
Mr. Peich?
I have no thanks.
And I have no questions either. Any need for summation on this one?
No thanks.
All right. Okay, the next property on the docket is 87 Smith Street, with the amount of assessed value. Mr. Ross, when you're ready.
Okay. So just give me a second to review. Okay. File number 19-2040, roll number 120925, 00087 Smith Street. Roll year 2020, assessed value $1,363,000, effective year built 1930, actual year built 1930, 39 suites, only one outdoor parking spot, construction class D, wood or steel frame walls, one outdoor parking spot. Made a rec on this property to reduce it, so basically what I did is I looked and I saw that our effective gross income was too high. This property doesn't collect a whole heck of a lot of rent, maybe looking turn to page 7 of the applicant's brief, you'll see you've got it nicely laid out that they're only getting about 203,000. So what I did is I took the actual potential rent with the modeled vacancy, and I calculated an effective gross income of $204,044. If you look at the applicant's brief, you see they've been operating at a 70, on average, a 74.6% expense ratio, which is atypical in regards to the normal operation of a building. Typically, we see in the 40s to 50s range, depending on how new it is. We've got this at lowest possible in our model. That's why it has an almost 60% expense ratio. And I think that's more appropriate, giving for an indication of what an investor would expect to spend. 70% seems in excess on a year-to-year basis of what typically a financially motivated person would run a building at. I think with this one, like the one on Smith we talked about, I think it's important to look at, you know, a potential purchaser, chances are they're not gonna buy this for the income in place. They're gonna see this as an opportunity. You know, in 2017, when a building in the Broadway, Assiniboine area is only getting, you know, $445 on average per unit, an investor is gonna see that as a chance to take advantage of that. And, you know, just like Altus has said, you shouldn't use a building in terms of calculating a cap rate that isn't purchased on its income in place. I don't think a purchaser would buy this for its income in place. So that being said, we still used the actual income in place, and we've got it as low as we can in the model, almost 60% expense ratio. So I made my rec using the 6.6 cap as per age, area, and size to 1,264,000 rounded. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Oliveira, so you accept that recommendation?
We appreciate the offer, but we do not accept the recommendation.
So please proceed with your questions then.
Okay. So, Marcus, you had stated that the expenses for this property, they're atypically high, and I can definitely see why. But had this property not been spending as much on repairs and maintenance as they do, would we not see the effects on the vacancy rate for that? Or if they're not spending as much as they are on this property, would that not affect the vacancy rates? Would that not affect the rents?
Well, they're not getting a lot of rent. Like, I mean, for 12 bachelors and 27 one-bedroom units, in 2017 to be only getting $445 per rent, particularly in the Broadway, Assiniboine area, I just don't think that it would be purchased based on this income. I think they would look at the income in place and say that we're gonna do something with this.
But this portion of the Broadway, Assiniboine area, it's a heavy traffic location that wouldn't. It's a heavy traffic location, it would affect it as well, though, right?
Definitely. That's, it's not as attractive as the properties we previously discussed. On adjacent streets, there's definitely merit to that comment, for sure.
And just the recommendation calculations you did here, so that was your own stabilization, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just curious as to how, do you have any notes on the repairs and maintenance that you applied to this property?
No, I just applied the expense ratio that we have in our model. We have it as low as possible.
Okay.
We have that for quality in our model to try and reflect those low rents that it's getting. It's almost 60%, which is a lot more than what we typically see. But again, it's still not as high as the actual expenses that are being put forth by the owner.
Okay. All right, no further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Whitford?
So you're suggesting your brief at page 4 needs to be changed?
Yeah, page 4, that's the model valuation. Page 3 is my,
No, I'm talking about just the information about how many Bachelor and how many what.
yeah, that's right, but the
Okay.
workup underneath, just
Yeah.
forget about that.
So your new NOI, yes, 83,454. Okay, I'm fine, thank you.
Mr. Pike?
I have none, thank you.
And I have no questions, so Mr. Colbert, please proceed.
Alright, so the subject property located at 87 Smith Street, roll number 12-0925-00000, file number 19-2040. So it's located on the east side of Smith Street, south of Broadway in the Winnipeg area. It's a 3.5-story structure built in 1930 and is presently being used as a multiple family residential building. The site size is an assessed land area of 5,996 square feet. Subject property has a total of 39 units, including 38 bachelor units and one one-bedroom unit, which is, in my opinion, less than ideal. Page 3 provided a map of the amenities that you can get around the area, or that are around the area. And now going to page 7 for my evaluation. Oh, and should mention too that I did an external inspection of this property. Photos can be found on page 25 and 26 of my brief. My evaluation follows the same logic. We've applied a 6.6% cap rate to the net operating income of $66,021. As you can see here, we are not disputing the assessor's cap rate. So the issue is on NOI. We could see that for this property in its current physical condition, it hasn't achieved from 2015 to 2017 an NOI that has been greater than 58,000, so 66,000 in my opinion. We're being generous, but we understand that the expenses can vary. So again, applying the 6.6% cap rate to the 66,000 NOI, we are asking the board to reduce the assessed value to $1 million.
Thank you. Mr. Karakis?
I have no questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pike?
I have none.
Mr. Whitford?
Nothing.
And I do not either, thank you. Okay, final docket almost this afternoon. 59 Hargrave Street. We're dealing with amount of assessed value. Mr. Barakis, you can proceed when you're ready.
All right, file number 19-2646, roll number 120925600000, 59 Hargrave Street, 2020 rule year assessed value $813,000. It's an apartment, 2 stories, 1954, 11 suites, 6 outdoor parking spots. D, construction class, wood or steel framed, exterior walls. The applicant's $1,000 more in terms of net operating income, so we're looking at cap on this one. They didn't go with their mailers, no compliance issues. 3 bachelor, 8 one-bedroom suites for the 11 suites, total $668 on the rent. We agree, we're pretty much the same on net operating income, so I'm not gonna belabor it. It's in the area we've been talking about. Page 13, it just shows an exterior picture of it. It looks like most of the apartments in that area built around the same time. So we use 5.1 for cap. Again, it's between Broadway and Assiniboine. We've talked about what I think of the area in regards to its attractiveness and, yeah, cap as per age, area, and size. That's my evidence, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Oliveros, questions?
So just kind of a few more questions surrounding the area. We say that there's a number of amenities. Can you tell us what amenities the tenants would find attractive in the downtown area?
Yeah, for sure.
Considering their essential needs.
Okay, well, for essential needs, there's a grocery store, Safeway, in Osborne Village. So that's not that far away. If you're going by bike, I know there's a bike path, pretty nice, goes in behind the ledge. You can go across the bridge, get to Safeway that way, or if you have a car, Broadway, get to the grocery store there. You have the river nearby, so if you wanna drop down and walk down the river walk or go for a run, go to the Forks, you can make your way to Osborne Village. We talked about that, and you can go the other direction, and you can go north. I know there's been some redevelopment in the Shed area, South Portage, true north. There's some new condos that have been built, apartments. It looks like investors are really putting their money in that area, which is pointing toward that they see demand there, and people are buying those places. And I really like this area. I think 5.1 is a very conservative cap.
Okay, no further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Whitburn?
Nothing.
Mr. Page?
I have none,
And
thanks.
I have none either, so we can please proceed.
So the subject property, 59 Hargrave Street, roll number 12-0925660000, file number 19-2646. Page 103 for asking this board to reduce the assessed value to $680,000. So the subject property itself, it's located on the south side of Hargrave Street, between Broadway and Hargrave Place in the Broadway, Assiniboine area of Winnipeg. Consists of a 2.5-story structure built in 1954, presently being used as an apartment building. Total gross floor area is approximately 8,214 square feet. The subject property has a total of 16 units, including 3 bachelor suites and 8 one-bedroom units. There are 6 reported outdoor parking stalls. The subject site, it's rectangular in shape and has an assessed land area of 6,056 square feet. So as Mr. Barakis has pointed out, we are coming very close to, our NOIs are very, very, very close. The issue is with cap rate. We've applied a 6.25% cap rate for this property, which has brought us down to our 680, which has brought us to $680,000. for this property, and that is what we're asking this board to reduce the assessed value to.
Thank you, Mr. Barocas.
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
Nothing, thanks.
Mr. Pike?
I have none, thanks.
And I have none, so thank you both for, any information on this one?
No, no.
Okay. Thank you.